더 뉴요커가 6분야의 전문가들을 한자리에 초대했습니다. 미국 사회를 몇 년간 뒤흔들고 있는 한국의 이건 열풍에 대해 이야기하기 위해서였죠. 정치학 박사, 철학자, 의사, 문화 연구가, 음악 프로듀서까지 정말 각양각색의 배경과 직업을 지닌 사람들입니다. 미국의 지식인들을 대변하기도 하고요. 그런데 평탄하게 진행될 거라 생각했던 이 대담이 불꽃 튀는 썰전으로 변하게 될지 누가 예상했을까요? 오늘의 주제 바로 K-POP 대세인가 아닌가입니다. 30여 분에 달하는 대담 내용 중 중요 내용만 뽑아 번역해 소개해드리겠습니다.
I think one of the things that people misunderstand about K-pop is that it's like this bubble pop kind of a genre of music, and it can be that, but it can also be a lot of other things as well.
2 million Korean Americans or people of Korean descent. Without question, BTS or large K-pop groups are going to be able to sell tickets in New York City and certainly sell out Madison Square Garden and can do well probably in the top 10 Korean American markets in the US. But beyond that, they can't.
I would actually challenge the notion that BTS's success depends on Asian Americans. I know for a fact that one of the things we know about K-pop fandom is that it's incredibly diverse. In fact, in my data, I constantly see very, very few Asian American respondents and more Latino, African American, and white respondents in the United States. So that's actually a myth.
Yeah, so BTS has been number one on the Social 50 chart for Billboard for more than 2 years, and they just broke the record that was previously held by Justin Bieber. And then you can also, of course, look at sales. That's the easiest way to look at it. So BTS, for example, has sold thus far more than 3 million copies of their latest album. I think they actually hit 3 million pre-orders before it even came out. So if that's not success, I don't know what is.
Sure. But there's a big gap between being a phenomenon, which is actually impacting all the music around you, versus having a little bit of success. So ultimately, they're doing fine, but they certainly are by no means a staple of American culture. I think what that means is that the people that love them, and nobody else is paying any attention.
So I think the American music audience is getting less xenophobic over time. We're seeing that barrier broken down, and we're seeing some really amazing artists breaking in a way that we haven't seen before.
Look, with each passing day, there's going to be new audience members. There's going to be people who discover it. There's going to be people who enjoy the art form in many different ways. And look, by design, it's meant to be expansive, and I think that opportunity exists.
You do have people coming out and saying really awful things, homophobic things, racist things. And the more exposure to, a broader audience and the more success, you're going to get some of those comments as well.
One of the reasons why Psy was embraced in the way that he was is that he did not present a threat. He was round, the video was funny, and so there was no challenge to the way that American culture perceives Asian men.
You have to think about culturally how K-pop is engineered. K-pop is a creation, okay? The boys, men, males, females, people who are chosen for very specific reasons. They are trained, they are characters, they are taught to behave a certain way, which embraces the theme of that particular group.
I think we have to be really careful about how we talk about these stars. There is a tendency in the Western media to say things like they're coming off of an assembly line, the K-pop factory. And I have a really big problem with terms like that because I think those terms are very dehumanizing. And so I think that that's one thing that I would like to see change a little bit in the discourse of how we talk about K-pop.
It's the problem of the American media that keep pushing this stereotypical image on these K-pop idols as typical Asian men stereotype that they already had.
What I would say to that is they do have unique personalities within Korean culture where they fill a certain void or a need that, executives have identified or believe they have identified. So every part of that experience is meant to fulfill a certain need. They are meant to be looked at not like you and me. They are meant to be elevated.
No, I agree. It's completely constructed. And the superficiality of K-pop is is joyful, I think.
I don't really see that in K-pop nearly as much. I mean, the members of the groups definitely have their own personalities, but I think it's a lot more of a mix, and there isn't necessarily a push to have them fit into those specific types of molds.
Right. A K-pop boy band is really meant to just be seen as a band, not a boy band, where there are not 8 unique personalities, or in some cases, 18 unique personalities. It is meant to be seen as one.
I don't think so. They do definitely have characters. It's just that they just construct over the...
It seems really amazing to us now because we see South Korea as this, very developed, very advanced country, which it is. But you go back just 40, 50 years and Korea was extremely impoverished. They came out of the Korean War devastated.
In terms of an export-oriented culture, there are extreme limitations as to what they can actually export because the country's half the size of Florida. It will have to be either manufactured goods in Korea, of which there are few, or it's going to have to be culture.
We might want to mention the importing of the culture. So because of the American military presence in South Korea, they brought American culture with them. This was during the Korean War and in the years afterwards. That's how the culture got in. So then it's mixed and exported out to the globe in terms of K-pop. Once again, it's a hybrid musical form. So it's taking things from this culture and that style of music and this style of music. And I think that that's something that's unique to K-pop. It doesn't sound like other popular musics in East Asia.
Definitely structured differently. There's a lot of highs and lows, louds and softs. It doesn't follow a traditional verse, chorus, bridge, chorus formula. A lot of times it weaves in and out between a rap verse and a melodic verse. And that's why I think you can't chalk it up to being kind of like generic cookie cutter pop.
What that means is musically, it doesn't sound like other records that are on the air today. It's not made by producers that are on the air today. And many of the K-pop records are intentionally made muddy. So you don't hear the separation of tracks. You don't hear the soaring melody lines. They don't stack vocals in the same way. It just sounds like a vocal. You're not getting those opportunities to actually see what an individual can do. You're meant to experience them as a group.
I think that's correct, especially when you're dealing with the groups. It's about putting those voices together in particular kinds of ways, which is why when individuals from those groups release their own music, it's kind of a treat because then you can see the kind of range or the kind of different ways they use their voice, which is not always apparent in the singles that are with the entire group. I think that success in the U.S. does represent a particular kind of prestige. However, if you look at what the Korean music agencies are doing as a whole, their primary markets are still China and Japan. It's very interesting coming from an American point of view because we're used to being the center. We're used to everybody aspiring to be like us. From an economic point of view, K-pop does not need the United States.
어떻게 보셨나요? 정치학 박사, 철학자, 의사, 문화 연구가, 음악 프로듀서 등 다양한 직업을 가진 미국인들의 K-팝에 대한 의견 참 흥미롭게 느껴졌는데요. 저는 패널 의견 중 공감하기 어려운 부분도 있었고 의외의 인사이트를 얻은 내용도 있었습니다. 다른 무엇보다 미국을 대변하는 언론 중 한 곳인 더 뉴요커에서 K-팝에 대한 특별 대담을 진행했다는 것만으로도 K-팝의 높아진 위상을 알 수 있는 것 같은데요. 앞으로 K-팝이 어떤 방향으로 나아갈지 새삼 궁금해지는 하루입니다. 오늘도 함께해주신 구독자 여러분께 감사드리며 다음에도 흥미로운 이야기로 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.